Okay, let's talk about gorillas for a while, because gorillas are supposed to be in our family tree. Again, a very recent publication. This is in this year. I haven't got the month, but quite recently this year. A couple of months ago, I believe this was. The oldest gorilla has been unearthed. There we go. Nature 2007, volume 444. And they found 8 molar teeth and a canine tooth. Often you wonder about evolution. You think they seem to be describing the evolution of teeth, and you get the impression that these teeth mated and produced baby teeth, and these teeth look like this, and they evolved into different teeth. And the creature that fitted the teeth is neither here nor there. And it's a bit like this with this story. Here we have a modern gorilla jaw down the bottom, and these teeth that they found, they actually match up very precisely with the teeth of a modern gorilla. Which is all very well, except we're told that humans and gorillas split off somewhere around 7 million years ago. This creature, unfortunately, is about 10 or 11 million years old. So we had gorillas, modern gorillas, it looks like, well, you can't tell the difference, but admittedly we've only got the teeth, existed before the split predicted by the genetics. So according to the geneticists, we split off from gorillas about 7 million years ago, but no, the fossils say differently, 10, 11 million years ago. So this looks to suggest that gorillas have been gorillas for the last 11 million years, and they've evolved into gorillas, to paraphrase John Mackay. So gorillas existed long before the split between gorilla and human predicted by genetics. So another problem for the evolutionist. The story doesn't seem to be holding up very well. And this is all very recent evidence. So I'd like to really try and summarize what I've been saying and ask, what does the evidence actually show from what we've seen? Now, I have been selective, and you can probably come back to me afterwards and say, but what about this, what about that? Well, actually, it doesn't make a lot of difference. But we can have a discussion about that if you wish, but it does show discontinuity. And there are advanced features too early, for example, this jaw 666 and the Natoli footprints. These advanced features were far too early. They were millions of years before they should have been in existence, and that creates problems for the evolutionary scenario. And another bit of very recent evidence too, published again a couple of months ago in Nature 2007, is the suggestion that actually Erectus and Habilis were contemporaries. Now, up until now, the evolutionary story has been that Ardipithecus evolved into Habilis, Ardipithecus evolved into Australopithecus, into Habilis, into Erectus, into human. And here we now have, they seem to be contemporaries. They're actually now considered to be, according to some of the latest evidence, parallel lines, so they weren't related at all. They're moving together in different directions. And this recent evidence which I showed you from the ramus of Lucy, showing that the Australopiths, the southern apes, are not related to humans after all. They're more closely related, it appears, to gorillas. And then we have the oldest gorilla, which is 11 million years old, which existed before the split predicted by the geneticists. So again, another problem for this branching tree. The branching tree doesn't seem to be branching anymore. You've got gorillas leading up to gorillas. You've got suggestion that the Lucy was an ancestor or an ancient gorilla, and Erectus and Habilis are split off into 2 separate groups altogether, if Habilis exists as a single group. And these advanced features which suggest that the story is not quite what we're told sometimes. And finally, we can look at the genetics. We've actually got significant genetic differences. The distance between chimps and humans is suddenly enlarged from 1.5% to 6.4%. And that's a fairly major difference when we consider that you're only 50% different from a banana. And the fact that the chimpanzees like bananas has nothing to do with it. Compare and contrast. This is what you're asked to do when you're at school. Write the essay comparing and contrasting. We're going to compare and contrast some of the fossils and some of the modern apes, the great apes as they're called, with human beings. First of all, let's have a look at the fossils in the chimp and gorilla. We have the humerofemoral index, and we have 1, 1, 2, 1.2, 1.2, around about 1 if you're a Lucy or you're a Homo habilis or you're a chimp or a gorilla. Brain size, you've got brain sizes going up to about 600 mils, maybe a bit more than that. This is average sizes, so you've got a bit of variation on either side. So brain size, fairly small, half or less than human being. Did these creatures knuckle walk? We've got definite evidence to show that Lucy was a knuckle walker. Habilis we're not really sure about. Chimps, yes. Gorillas, yes. Brachiation, could these creatures brachiate? Could they swing from hole to hole in a tree? And these 4 creatures all could do that. The semicircular canals have been analysed for all these creatures. And I've got bipedal, 2 bits of evidence from the semicircular canals. Was the creature bipedal? Well, yes, partially. These creatures could stand up and walk around bipedally on the basis of their semicircular canals. But were their semicircular canals more importantly adapted to an arboreal or moving around in the trees? Yes, they were, all 4. So I would suggest to you that we have here a collection of apes. Some fossil, some living, and some possibly ancestors of the living ones. And here we have Erectus, a modern humus, humerofemoral index, 0.7.7. Brain size, slightly less than a litre and slightly more than a litre. Could they knuckle walk? No, neither of them were knuckle walkers. Were they able to brachiate? No, the shoulder blades and the fingers are not typical of creatures that brachiate. And semicircular canals, bipedal, yes, they were obligate bipeds. They had to walk around on their 2 feet. And not considered to be adapted to an arboreal lifestyle. We're not designed to move around the trees. So I would suggest to you that we have apes which basically have 3 modes of locomotion. They can walk around sort of like us, but if you ever see an ape walk, they don't walk with straight legs. Their legs are bent, their feet are splayed out because they can't bring their knees in forward, and they don't do it for very long because it's very uncomfortable, because they can't actually straighten their leg and lock their knees. If we stand up, you can stand for hours because you can actually lock your knee into place. An ape can't do that. Also, their pelvis is not correctly adjusted, so they actually have to lean forward. So if they lock their knees, they'd end up falling over backwards. So they can't physically do it. So that's a big difference between the way the legs are put together, not to mention the size. So you have a group of creatures that can move around in 3 different ways, and a group of creatures that can only move around in one way, in other words, walking or running. And they have very similar architecture in their legs and arms. The brain size, well, we don't really know what the minimum size for a human brain is to actually be a human. And most people who work on the structure of brains and the way the brains work agree that it's the way the brain is organised that's much more important than size. And there are some people around, I've been looking around on the internet trying to find evidence for the smallest sized human, and I haven't been able to find it, smallest sized human brain, but I suspect it's quite small, way below the average. And I would argue that Erectus is in the modern human range. So, concluding, the evidence is actually consistent with discontinuity, but it's actually been interpreted according to an evolutionary paradigm. What's happened is, you have the evolutionary story, we evolved from apes, which was invented by Charles Darwin, on the basis of very little evidence, and the story goes that we evolved from chimps, so you have, or apes, with small brains, not able to walk upright, and if we're going to get from an ape to a human being, you have to go through certain changes. You have to change from walking around on your knuckles to walking around on 2 feet. You have to adapt your semicircular canals. You have to grow a larger brain. Also, your hands change, because an ape has not got such fine control over his hands as we have. And you've got a whole load of changes which you would fit into an evolutionary scenario. So what's happened is you get fossils, and they're basically forced into the chain of events that has been predicted, rather than flowing from the evidence itself. There's nothing in the evidence itself that suggests that there has to be a transition. And some of the evidence I've shown you, I hope, has convinced you of that Australopithecus is an ape, gorillas have always been gorillas, and we're not very closely related to them genetically either. And still missing, even worse now, actually, at the end, as we come to the close of 2007, we don't have an ancestor. We don't have the common ancestor of humans and apes anymore, because Lucy has fallen out. The gorilla has been around for 11 million years, which is about 3 or 4 million years too long. It just doesn't work. So it leaves us with a question, and I want to finish with this question. Are we the son of an ape, or are we the son of God? And I want to finish with the words from the Bible. Genesis chapter 1. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the heavens, over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female he created them. We are not sons of an ape, we're not descended from apes, we are, if anything, sons of God, Creator God.